Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. I'm extremely delighted to meet all of you with this particular chapter, which is the Age of Reorganization. This is from Class 7 Social Science NCRT textbook, Exploring Society. So let's get started with the first part of this chapter, Social Science with Sudhir sir, right? So that's what you need to do. And in case if any one of you is still asking for which is the best question bank to buy, so this is what I am recommending out here for social science. Similar ones are available for English, for Hindi, for mathematics, for science, and for Sanskrit. So what you need to do is to follow the link which I'm going to put in the description box, also in the pinned comment, and then go to the relevant link. You can buy it from Amazon. In fact, better it would be if you go to oswaldbooks.com, the website, and there before you make the payment, put in the author coupon code which I have. I'm giving it to you for your benefit so that all of you can get an additional discount and save money for your parents. So do this. Why should you buy this? That's also a valid question, because these question banks contain mind maps, they contain notes. Many of you keep asking for notes. They contain notes, they contain mind maps, they contain all the answers to the questions given in your NCRT textbook. They contain lots of extra questions and answers, MCQs as well as long format. And then there are 2 practice papers given right at the end. So that's why we are recommending this, because we find this among all the question banks which are available in the market. This one by Oswald Books is the most comprehensive. That's why we are recommending it. Okay, rest entirely up to you. If you think with the NCRT textbook and my videos you can do very well, great, you can do that, no problem at all. But if you think you need extra help, this is the one you should buy. Okay, now let's get started with the Age of Reorganization. This is chapter number 6. So these are the different things that we are going to study in 2 parts in this particular chapter, because you see, the last chapter, the rise of empires, we saw the rise of the Nanda dynasty, the rise and fall, the Chanakya character, the Greek invasion, and then the Maurya dynasty, Chandragupta Maurya, followed by King Ashoka the Great. We studied all that in chapter 5, the rise of empires. Chapter 6 focuses on the age of reorganization, because many of these empires declined over a period of time. So what really led to the decline and what happened as part of this reorganization? Another interesting aspect is that in chapter 5, we did not study about what was happening in the southern part of India, the Chola dynasty, the Chera dynasty, the Pandya dynasty, right? Even the Pallavas, right? So what was happening in the southern part of India? Because remember the map, the Maurya dynasty did not include the southern part of India. It extended till Kandahar in Afghanistan. It extended the whole of India, right? But not the southern part of India. What was happening there? Very interesting things were happening there. That's what we are going to study in this chapter. Okay, so let's get started. What I'm going to do, frankly speaking, I found the way this chapter is structured a little confusing to teach you from the textbook directly. So I'm going to follow my notes for this. Okay, please note it down. These notes are not meant to be shared out here. Okay, now let me just tell you in point format what exactly happened. When we are talking about the age of reorganization, this is essentially the period following the Maurya Empire, as I just now said, which is why it is referred to as the age of reorganization. Okay, why was this term used by scholars? Because many of the existing regions, because after the emperor died, okay, or was killed, what was happening is that the satraps, I spoke about it in the previous chapter, the satraps were busy asserting their independence. Oh, the main Badshah is gone. Now we can all become independent in our small kingdoms, right? So that was happening, and that led to a lot of reorganization, because these new kingdoms, they were constantly competing to become powerful. So if I am a small kingdom, you are another small kingdom, what I will do is that let me attack that kingdom and conquer that so that I will become a bigger kingdom. So everyone was trying to increase their sphere of influence. So what happened as a result was that the map of India, which was the way it was under the Maurya Empire, which you have seen in chapter number 5, the rise of empires, that changed a lot. And when the kings change, obviously the life of people will also change, right? That would happen because under King Ashoka, who was known to be a benevolent and a kind emperor, there are many small kings, satraps, right? Now, some of those satraps will be evil people, not exactly good and benevolent and kind. So they will start committing atrocities on the people. Till such time that they were under Ashoka, they would behave themselves. But now they're independent, they would do on their own. So that's how the question of how did people's life change, you can answer. Now, let's look at the historical context, okay, of this age of reorganization. Now, very little is known about who succeeded Ashoka the Great to the throne. Okay, what happened after Ashoka was no more? Because the last Maurya emperor was assassinated around 185 before Common Era. Okay, by his commander-in-chief, whose name was Pushyamitra Shunga. You need to remember this name. This name is significant. Okay, this name is significant because this assassination means murder, killing of a prominent figure, a prominent political figure or a king was known as an assassination. It would not be referred to as a murder. Like former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, when she was killed on October 31, 1984, it is called an assassination. Mahatma Gandhi, when he was killed, it is called an assassination. Now, this assassination of the last Maurya emperor, it led to the breakup of the Maurya Empire, right? Within half a century after Ashoka, that is 50 years after Ashoka, the entire Maurya Empire disintegrated. It broke up. So what happened as a result was that there were many new kingdoms emerged in the subcontinent, in the Indian subcontinent, extending from India right up till Afghanistan. And many of them were, as I just now told you, were tributary kingdoms. You know, people who were satraps, people who would be paying tribute, who were vassals of the emperor. Now they were all declaring themselves as kings on their own, independent kings. The northwest region, which we are talking about, Pakistan, Afghanistan, present day Pakistan, Afghanistan, that became weak, and exposing it to people started attacking the empire from that side, because there the Maurya Empire, the empire as it was under the Mauryas, that became very weak. Now, what are the key characteristics that you need to know about? One, as I just now told you, foreign invasions. Okay, this is important. The second one is internal conflicts with many kingdoms declaring themselves to be independent, right? So this led to a reorganization of the political powers, right? The political powers started reorganizing. Now, you know, you are independent. Oh, till yesterday, you were our tributary, you were our vassal. Now he is declared himself as an independent king. So there is a reorganization taking place. Even though there were many political struggles, there were also a lot of focus on art, on culture, literature, architecture. So it is not as though, you know, that was ignored, that also continued. And that is something which we will see in this chapter. There was a lot of cultural exchange and assimilation. Assimilation means coming together, right? So this particular era saw a lot of cultural exchange also. There were a lot of development in trade. So all that did not stop, both internal and external, internal within the country, external outside India. So therefore, this period is known as the tapestry of the past. Tapestry is what? Tapestry is something, a work of handicraft, where there are different kinds of elements being mixed together to produce a masterpiece, right? So there were different kinds of influences. Tapestries, essentially, you know, you would have seen it in some handicraft stores. You know, there would be, let's say, some kind of a work of, let's say, craft from or embroidery from, let's say, Gujarat in general. But that tapestry would mean that there are influences from Surat, there are influences from Bhuj, there are influences from Rajkot, there are influences from Ahmedabad. So there are different kinds. So it is a tapestry which kind of having different kind of influences, because there was a lot of interaction and assimilation. So that is what was happening at this point in time. Now, let's now look at the prominent kingdoms that emerged at that time. We will study about 3 of them in part 1 and the rest of them in part 2 of this explanation videos. The first one is Shunga. Why did I say he's important? Because of this. Because he assassinated the last Maurya emperor, right? 50 years after Ashoka, and he established what was known as the Shunga dynasty, named after him, which is why this particular name is important. Okay, the Shunga dynasty. As far as territory is concerned, they ruled over parts of North and Central India, right? 1 minute, I'm just getting a call. Tejo, I am recording right now. I'll call you after half an hour. So the territory of this Shunga dynasty was entire North India, which was essentially Maurya Empire, right? And Central India. Why not Northwest India? Because that was now getting weak with a lot of invasions taking place from India, from other parts, right? So he almost 70 to 80%, he still controlled. Pushyamitra Shunga did something very interesting, whose references you find even in the Ramayana. He performed what was called the Ashwamedha Yagna. Okay, you ask your grandparents, they'll be able to tell you more about it. Ashwamedha Yagna was a Vedic ritual to establish himself as a powerful ruler. What would really happen as part of this Ashwamedha Yagna was that the king would perform a puja, an elaborate what was called a yagna, performed by lots of priests, and then they would let loose a horse. The rule was that if the horse went on without being stopped by any other ruler, now that horse would go into other kingdoms also. If that king did not stop the horse, it meant that this particular king who sent the horse now had control over that kingdom. But if that king stopped the horse, it meant that he will have to fight with this king now, right? So a horse accompanied by soldiers was left to wander freely. Any territory it crossed unchallenged became part of the king's empire. If it was challenged, if the horse was stopped, it led to a battle. We find reference to the Ashwamedha Yagna even in the Ramayana, right? Lord Rama also had performed the Ashwamedha Yagna. Okay, that's another story. Now, the relations of the Shunga dynasty, he maintained friendly relations with the Greeks after initial military campaigns against them, right? So that was one aspect. But the Shunga empire, like the Maurya empire, also declined over a period of time. It did not last long, too many years after Pushyamitra Shunga, and it disappeared a century later. So this is the first dynasty that you need to know. What happened as far as culture and art was concerned? Ashwamedha Yagna is an important aspect that you need to remember, right? It saw, and he was into a lot of Vedic rituals, right? So that because the ruler was like that, the kingdom also started practicing a lot of Vedic rituals. But there are other rituals also, maybe Buddhism also may have flourished at the same time. Sanskrit, this is an important aspect, that Sanskrit emerged as a preferred language for philosophical and literary work. So this is an important development. The Yoga Sutras. Okay, now Yoga Sutras is something which you need to know about. They were compiled by Patanjali during this time. Patanjali, of course, is now a big brand, okay, of Baba Ramdev. Now, Patanjali, who was Patanjali? Patanjali was an Indian sage, an Indian sadhu, highly respected, also scholar, and he had compiled what was called the Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutra is a textbook of classical yoga philosophy, that what are the kind of yogasanas that you can do, the different methods under yoga in terms of what you should eat and how you should breathe, the asanas you should do, and different aspects of the science of yoga. All that was actually the work of Patanjali, right? The Shunga dynasty also encouraged literature, it encouraged art, it encouraged architecture. The Barhat Stupa, right? The Barhat Stupa, it showcases beautiful examples of Shunga art, which is in modern day Madhya Pradesh, and it has reliefs depicting stories from Lord Buddha's life. These are considered some of the earliest examples of Buddhist art. Buddhist art is very important. Let's just look at the photograph of this particular one, right? All this I've already told you. Now, this is the map that you can look at, which will give you an idea. Now, these are the Shungas and Shunga dynasty. This area was started to getting controlled by the Indo-Greeks, and Shungas were the ones who were ruling in large part of central and northern part of India, right? Now, okay, this question I will tell you. Let's look at this question first. Uh, it says, while working on the timeline, did you notice the transition from BCE to CE? Remember how you learned. Now, what the question is that, okay, I think the notes, this part is missed out. Let me just show you the photograph so that we finish with that part or all that, and then I will come back to this. Okay, where is it's going too much ahead here. It's gone into Satavahana. This is the Barhat Stupa that I was talking about. Okay, so let's go back to it. Let me just, there is some bit which is missed out in the notes. I will just come back to it. And this is the part. Okay, now this is something which I had touched upon as part of my notes in the chapter 5 also. Now, the new kingdoms now competed for territorial control. There were matrimonial alliances that you would get married, you would marry a princess from the other kingdom in order to have a matrimonial alliance. So that is what we were talking about. So the dynasties from within the subcontinent were the Shungas, the Chedis, the Satavahanas, the Cholas, the Cheras, and the Pandyas. And these were the ones which were coming from the outside, which are the prominent dynasties of the thing. This is all, again, I've told about the horse, that they would conduct this thing, Ashwamedha Yagna, and the horse would be asked to go. Okay, all this I have already told you. These are some of the photographs of the different railings of the Barhat Stupa, etc., which you can look at in your textbook. Okay, please have a look at the textbook, because in some of your exams, some of your teachers may decide to give some picture related questions. So picture related question asking you to identify and then ask to explain something about it. So please do look at all the photographs which are part of your NCERT textbook. This is very important. Okay, I urge you to see this. For example, something like this, which is like a comb, right? It's a kangi, right? And it is a comb made of ivory. So you should be able to identify what it is, in which era it was, etc. Right? So okay, we have finished this off. There was this thing about 200 to 1 BCE is 199 years. Where is this question? I couldn't find that question. 1 minute. I'm not able to find this question. Just bear with me for a moment. Yeah. So it says create a timeline on a sheet of paper, because this kind of a calculation question can also come. I feel if I were a teacher, I would give you this kind of a question to test your understanding. So it says marking the period from the first year of the 2nd century BCE and ending in the last year of the 3rd century BCE. So how many years does this period cover? So you should be able to know this calculation, because this is an integral part of history. So the years from 200 BCE, right, to 1 BCE will be 199 years, right? From 1 BCE to 200 CE will be 200 years. So this we have already come to what, 399 years. And this from 201 to 300 BC is another 100 years. So this is another 100. So this becomes a total of 499 years between the first year of 2nd century BCE to the last century of 3rd century Common Era. So you should be able to do this kind of calculation. It is important. Okay, so let's go back to the main text, and now we are coming to the second prominent dynasty that arose from within the Indian subcontinent, which was the Satavahanas. Satavahanas, according to me, is a bigger and a more important dynasty than the Shungas, because they covered a large part of India and different from just the north and central, because they came even to part of South India, into what is modern day Andhra Pradesh. Okay, so the territory was large parts from the Deccan. Deccan is essentially today's parts of Maharashtra, parts of Telangana, parts of northern Karnataka, right? From the 2nd century BCE to the south of the Shunga Empire. So Shunga Empire, where it ended, the Satavahana Empire actually started. So their empire largely comprised present-day Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Maharashtra, what I just now told you. So the capital cities were Pratisthana, Python. You know Python saris, which are very famous from Maharashtra. That essentially is essentially same area. Amravati is the area which is now in Andhra Pradesh. Also, of course, there's an Amravati in Maharashtra as well. Trade and commerce flourished under the Satavahana kingdoms. Coins depicting ships suggested what? Because once you had control over Andhra Pradesh, modern day Andhra Pradesh, it meant that you had access even to the Bay of Bengal, which meant that you had access to the ports and you could, do trade via the ship route, the maritime route reaching from Gujarat to Andhra Pradesh. They have active trade networks that went till the Roman Empire. So they were doing trade with Europe as well. What were the kind of goods which were exchanged, which is very important? Spices, textiles, sandalwood, right? Luxury items like pearls and ivory. If they had control over Telangana, obviously they had access to a lot of pearls, etc. Imports of glass, perfumed ointments, then tolls and taxes. That's how they collected revenue. Agriculture flourished because you had the Godavari River, you had the Krishna River, which meant that you had very fertile land where agriculture obviously flourished in that part of the Satavahana Empire, in the Krishna Godavari river system, and ensured that the economy was very good in the countryside. What about culture? There was economic prosperity, peaceful politics, etc. Princes were named, and this is very important, that the princes were named after their mothers. Now, this is something again which can come as a question, because this is something very unique about the Satavahana Empire, that the princes, the males, were named after their mothers, not after their father or grandfather. For example, Gautami Putra Satakarni, okay, was named after Gautami Balashri, right? The mother. In fact, there is a movie which was made after Gautami Putra Satakarni, right? This was played by actor Nandamuri Balakrishna. Students from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana would be familiar with this actor. He's the son of the legendary N.T. Ramarao. He's also now an MLA in the Andhra Pradesh Assembly. He's the brother-in-law of Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu. So he played this role. I think this movie came in 2017 or something. Gautami Putra Satakarni. So this is an image of the emperor, and this is what the Satavahana Empire looked like. That they promoted maritime trade, as you can see from the ship. There was a lot of focus on architecture, art, etc., as is evident in this particular illustration. Now, the queens, you would realize, if the son is being named after the mother, it is very obvious that the queen occupied a prominent position. So Gautami Balashri, who was the mother of Gautami Putra Satakarni, she donated a lot of land to Buddhist monks, and she had an important inscription in Nasik, which is in present-day Maharashtra. A Satavahana widow queen performed several Vedic rituals, including the Ashwamedha Yagna. Right, so it was not as though widows were, asked to confine themselves to a small space, but she actually played a prominent role in the kingdom. Right, there were inscriptions in Brahmi script from Naneghat caves, shows early forms of modern numerals. So there was a certain form of arithmetic which was also used in that time. The religion, they were followers of Lord Krishna, right? But they also kind of encouraged other schools of thought, which would have included Buddhism for sure. Kings often granted tax-free agricultural land to Vedic scholars, Jain monks, and Buddhist monks. Architecture, there are caves near Lonavala in Maharashtra, near Mumbai, which are called the Karla caves, right? That's all part of the Satavahana dynasty. There is the Pitalkora caves, again in Maharashtra, right? Again, part of the Satavahana dynasty. But in the 3rd century Common Era, the Satavahana Empire gradually kind of broke up due to weak kings, weak central control, and the economy also dying off. So that brought about the end of the Satavahana dynasty. The 3rd dynasty that we are going to study in this explanation video is the Chedis. Now, the Chedis, they rose in Kalinga, okay, as a very prominent empire after the decline of the Maurya Empire, and the first ruler of the Chedi Empire was Kharavela. He was the main ruler. Religious beliefs was Jainism, okay, sometimes called as Bhikshu Raja, monk king, because he also followed Jainism in addition to his role as the king of the Chedi dynasty. The Udaygiri caves, right, near Bhubaneswar, they were developed for Jain monks, and they include a lot of statues, a lot of intricate work. The inscriptions are written in Brahmi script, the Hati Gumpa inscription, and it records Kharavela's accomplishments. So this is important because this can come as a question in your question paper. Military campaign. So they celebrated Kharavela as a king of the Chedi dynasty. Kharavela proudly declared that he created a council of ascetics. Ascetics means sadhus and sages, and was respected of every sect and repair of every temple, and was an example of the Indian ethos of protecting all schools of thought, which meant that he did not discriminate between one religion and another religion, but he respected every religion, be it though, even though he followed Jainism, he obviously also respected people who followed Hinduism or people who followed Buddhism. So with that, we come to the end of the first part of this particular chapter. Okay, the map is important. You should be able to identify areas, right? All this is done. I'm just seeing if anything I have missed out in the Satavahana Empire. Satavahana, both you can see. You should be able to identify. Now, look at this coin, for example. It is actually showing a ship. So the ship actually depicts the coin, and the imprint of the ship actually suggests that advanced shipbuilding was a part of the, the navigation technologies, etc. during the Satavahana Empire, right? So all this is there. These are some of the Naneghat caves photographs. Now look at the intricate thing. Look at how much of a height it is at and how it has been developed within the caves. This is where the monks, etc. used to meditate, etc. So this is about the Gautami Putra Satkarna I have mentioned. These are some of the numerals, etc., which were there, to indicate 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, right? So you see the 7 is very similar. 1, 2, of course, is denoted by lines, etc. 4, 6 is looking more like 4, but anyway. So these are some of the numerals, which indicates that they knew how to count. So it was, in that sense, a slightly more evolved and advanced dynasty, right? So these are some of the temple, the caves, etc., which were there. Yaksha means some kind of a demon goddess kind of a thing, right? Entity. So you can, Kanhadasa, a goldsmith, that a goldsmith was also making also into sculpting. So the coming of the Chedis you are seeing. Now this is a very important kind of a structure. These are the Udaygiri caves, which are in Odisha near Bhubaneswar, right? And this is something which you are seeing, a panel which is showing a scene from the Ramayana epic, right? So my suggestion always is that after you have gone through my explanation video, which I hope you have understood till here, please go through your book, because that will serve as a revision. And then if you buy this particular question bank, if you have the notes, then it will also serve you next time. You don't have to read the book all over again. You just go through the notes. It will help you do a quick revision. I'll be doing the same video in Hindi as well for those of you who would prefer to understand history in Hindi. But I'll now meet you in explanation video number 2 of the Age of Reorganization. Till then, tata, bye bye, namaskar. Subscribe to the channel and share the video for sure.